First of all, I'm extremely happy to be here because the issue under discussion is something that is of great relevance today. So I must thank Mr. Dev Sharma ji in particular and all the dignitaries present here. Dr. Arun Sharma, I can't see. I hope he's there. It's a challenge talking to an audience which is as well informed, but I would want to bring into focus how we at Donor are looking at SDGs for developmental efforts in the northeastern region. As you would have been informed by now, the northeastern region is the only place in the country where the SDGs have been defined at the level of the districts also, whereas in the rest of the country, it is at the level of the state. Now, there is a reason for this. Our vision for the northeastern region's development is to have transformative development in the region, which is accelerated yet sustainable, so that we can inclusively afford ease of living to all its citizens. This is a very meaning impregnated vision. Each of the words are nuanced and loaded with purpose. For example, when we say transformational, so there are areas and activities which have been identified to have a transformational impact. And for example, some of those are linking up the forest wealth in the region to local livelihoods, but sustainably. Similarly, restoring the international connectivity that naturally existed for this region before larger geopolitical developments. Again, sustainably and in a manner so that a win-win is created for the different stakeholders in the region. But all of this is being attempted where the development deficits of the region are well recognized. The resources for this, therefore, are necessary to be assessed and mobilized further if needed. So even the accelerated development that we have talked of has this deeper meaning. So I think it is because of our grooming and qualification that we look at acceleration in a Newtonian sense also. So acceleration most definitely will require an impelling force, which is in terms of monetary resources, but also in terms of expertise, in terms of implementation systems, in terms of local capacities, etc. So the use of SDGs is therefore very, very crucial, especially in the northeastern region, at every stage of our effort. So this has to be needed, first of all, to identify locations with development deficits. So SDG framework should help us identify, therefore, which are going to be the areas of our focus, even within the northeastern region. And if I may say so, while we have drilled this down to the district level, the effort has to go down even further. And in supplement with the SDG index that has been published with the help of Niti Aayog and UNDP for the northeastern region, together with us, we are also looking at multidimensional poverty factors for even finer assessment of development deficits at the block level, for example. So the approach of the framework, the SDG framework, which is presently at a state level in the country, has already been taken down to the district level in the entire northeastern region, all the districts. And the approach also has to go down even further so that we identify which are the exact geographies with the development deficits. And that is an effort which the donor is the Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region, MDonor as we are called. This is what we are pursuing with the expert stakeholders and partners. Now, the next step for this would be also to identify which are the interventions that need to be taken, how those deficits will have to be attended to, and therefore what are the outcomes, how will we measure those outcomes, how will we monitor those outcomes is important. So identification of deficits, mapping these with the resources that are available, and monitoring these to the desired outcomes. Each one of this will have to be supported by the SDG framework. And this is what we at the ministry are pursuing hereafter with interested stakeholders. All of this is being done collaboratively by involving the states of the region for sure. And we are also looking at partners outside the government who can help us bring in those resources in every sense of the term. So monetary resources, okay, but also their expertise, their implementation capacities, and their ability to build those capacities in the local communities eventually. Because it's quite clear that this is not just an academic program to be discussed at high-level interactions amongst the experts only, and it just becomes maybe a planning tool at best. This is a 360-degree framework, and that is why we are actively pushing for this to be taken to the grassroots also. So for example, apart from discussing with the states, we are consulting, and I'm sure there would be representatives from those organizations. So we are consulting with UNDP so that we have a setup built into the state's planning processes, which is based on the SDG studies that are being done, the SDG index reports that are being published, to be incorporated in the state's planning processes and directing the resources towards the identified deficits, towards the identified areas which suffer those deficits. So this effort has advanced quite a bit, and we would certainly need to work more on this, but this is the direction that we are taking so that the sustainability is of development is enhanced by adopting the SDG framework. One aspect of this I would further want to underline, and that is how we take it down to the communities themselves. So one of the leading states, I'm sure someone from Mizoram would be there to fill you on that, but they had set out uh, one workable model which we are intending to take to the other states also. This is through the involvement of educational institutions and their students who participate in the effort to link the SDGs, the gaps, the resources to the local development of the communities by mapping what exists in the communities, what is the gap, and how that can be plugged, how that development can be of relevance to the local communities. That's a very uh, workable model, we think, where the senior college students are involved in this process, and that helps in the communities getting on board. These students actually have the confidence of the communities to so that they can open up and help in planning for their development itself. That's an effort that has been tried in one state to an extent, and we find hopeful signs for this to be adopted across that state, Mizoram, which I mentioned, and the other states as well. Now, this has also been behind what we are calling the Sambhav program. So Sambhav, I'm sure you know that word. So what we are saying is actually indicative of our confidence that it is possible to reach the local communities for their development. So this is an acronym for saturation of model blocks and villages with basic services. And the stakeholders here again are varied. After a consultative process, which is not only the states, but even the local block and village communities, a list of basic services that have to be extended to every block and village in identified areas as a pilot as of now has been prepared. This includes 15 such basic services, which in the government system are delivered by 12 ministries and departments as their main subject. They have their flagship schemes. These services have been mapped to those flagship schemes. And the KPIs, the key performance indicators, have been adopted as per the existing KPIs of those flagship schemes. It's a shorter list, of course, but that's how we will measure the progress in respect of uh, the saturation of these services in the blocks and villages. And for Sambhav, we have been able to, through our efforts, where our officers and state officers have jointly gone to these blocks and villages, consulted the local communities. So we are drawing up a local village level service plan. So that again follows the SDG model, where the deficits are identified, the resources that will go towards bridging those deficits are identified, and these will be monitored. So that framework of SDGs, of objective data-based identification of intervention areas, resource suballocation, and monitoring is being followed for the Samba program also, which is then a practical way of using the SDGs for sustainable development. So we had identified 75 villages for this intervention aligned to SDGs and sustainable development, of which about 60 villages have already drawn up their own service plans. So apart from this planning process and government sector interventions, we have engaged with other stakeholders who are in some ways bringing in resources, financial resources, where we are looking at CSR funding, and expertise, where we are looking at agencies which are outside government sector also, to involve the local communities, to help them understand how we are trying to bridge the development deficits in their areas, and how these communities develop the capacities to start taking their own decisions, so that the spirit of SDGs and sustainable development is imbibed at the very grassroots levels also, which also in turn contributes to the sustainability itself. So I have shared that experience, that effort of the ministry, in the hope that this will be deliberated upon in course of the discussions today or outside. There will be interested stakeholders present who will have something to tell us, something to share on this, that can help us refine this and take it down to the grassroots. The efforts of this workshop and our efforts in the ministry will be purposefully attained if we can have those stakeholders of the development process join us and strengthen us in a synergetic way. And that's my takeaway from this conference. The reason why I'm keen to join and listen to the deliberations, know of the deliberations. Please join us in this effort. This is what is the prime driver of our developmental agenda for the Northeastern region. And I'm sure with all the multiple stakeholders present there, we will be benefited in pursuing this agenda for the Northeastern region. I thank all of you for inviting me to this session, inviting me to address all of you. But I think this would be far more useful if we start getting a feedback from the August gathering present. Thanks to everyone. And I would stop here by reiterating my request. Please stay connected. This should not be a one-off interaction amongst all of us. Thank you.